This class will focus on the functions of the Human Resource Development section within a business. Human Resource Development being a section of the Human Resource Management department. At least that's the way we're going to view it. Now, in the class we'll talk about the functions of the HRD department or the HRD section and the roles and responsibilities of the HRD professionals. So let's start by looking at the functions of HRD, Human Resource Development. Over recent years, HRD has become an important function in business. Over the years, the role of training within the business, within a business, has changed. It's now seen important to invest in the workforce and to recognize that the workforce are a resource within the business and that their productivity will ultimately determine the survival or the growth path of the business. So HRD has become a very important function within business. It can be a standalone function with its own department, or it can, as I said earlier, become connected as a part of the Human Resource Management department. Generally speaking, literature seems to suggest that the HRM, the Human Resource Management department, has a section which is dedicated to development, the HRD section, the Human Resource Development section. But it could be standalone. It could be two departments, one dedicated to training and development and the other to the functions of human resource management. In recent years, human resource development has developed and shaped its functions in accordance with organisational needs. Technology has changed immensely over the last couple of decades and is likely to continue to change, so that the skill sets required of the workers has also changed. What employers need workers to be able to do has changed, and this means that there is much more emphasis now on training. Workers are trained on the job, they're trained in the specific functions of the business, as well as having good overall training in a generic sense, coming from school, from college or from university. They have good overall generic skills, but the company needs to develop the specific skills that are required for its processes. And there's a greater emphasis on this now in the literature. Let's look at the so-called ASTD model. This is the American Society for Training and Development, and it sponsored a study by Pat McLagan. Now, McLagan, his study is important in the context of what we're going to do, so we're going to look at this one in a little more detail. The purpose of the study was to identify the HRD roles and responsibilities that are needed to help human resource departments to function effectively. In other words, what McLagan was looking at was what are the roles of a HRD, of the Human Resource Development Department. What should it do and what are its responsibilities? Should it be its responsibility to ensure the efficiency of the workforce, to ensure that the workforce have the appropriate skills and competencies? Should it engage in testing to see if the workforce are suited to the tasks that they have been given? So what are the responsibilities? What are the roles of the HRD section? And how do they fit also with the Human Resource Management department? Now, the study revealed that there are 4 factors that affect the development of human resource development. According to this study, there are 4 factors that affect the development of HRD. First of all, it's recognition of the need for diversity in workforces. There must be diversity. There must be a range of skills, a range of people, so that the people are able to communicate and exchange ideas. Now, diversity can be within particular skills, diversity of skills within a department, diversity of departments, all with different skills, but able to communicate and talk to each other so that ideas are flowing freely around the organization. So there needs to be diversity, there needs to be differences in the workforce. And the differences, generally speaking, are in terms of experiences, education, training, but they also could be in life terms, differences in lifestyles, different cultures, people coming from different cultures. But this overall diversity means that there's a whole range of ideas floating around the organization, people seeing situations differently, and as a consequence there's a more cognitive approach to working, a more thinking approach to working, a more thinking and thoughtful approach to performing tasks, and a constant quest for improvement, because different people are seeing it differently. If all the workforce were homogeneous, if they were all the same, there wouldn't be this cross-fertilization of ideas. There wouldn't be this cross-fertilization, as I said, of opinions about the most appropriate or the most effective way to function or to perform tasks. So diversity in the workforce was the first outcome of the McLagan study. This was one of the big findings of the study. The increase of knowledge work requires people to work independently. We're moving towards knowledge work all the time. The advent of computer networks and the proliferation of computerization within industry, within commerce, the instantaneous responses that can be had, the queries that can be posed and answered very quickly, even on the internet. So individuals can work much more independently. But the study also, I think, brings out the need for workers to be able to communicate and deal with each other and empathize with the organization. We are social creatures as well, so an entirely solitary existence is not what we're about. But knowledge work means that people are required to work independently, and the capacity to work independently is important. So it flies in the face of many things that we've said in courses of lectures in this on this course about the importance of teamwork. Well, teamwork is important, but knowledge work tends to be more solitary, and a balance has to be found between its requirements and those of the social nature of people. And management's expectations of employees' involvement and workload, this needs to be carefully balanced. Management may want a lot, but it's not practical. People are not machines. They should work fairly, and they should work within their capacity. Their expectations in terms of what they require as skills and what they require as application and effort should be reasonable. Now, as to what is reasonable, that depends on the task, it depends on the situation, but simply putting it out there as management should be reasonable is sufficient to flag up that there could be an issue with this one. Workplace legislation also needs to be taken into account. So the human resource development function needs to be aware of legislation. It needs to know what the management expectations are. It needs to recognize that there is knowledge work which is more independent, and it needs to recognize the need for diversity in the workforce. And those are the 4 findings, working backwards. Those are the 4 findings of the study. And these are important. Now, moving on from there, the human resource development literature often talks about what it calls the human resource wheel. Now, the study, the McLagan study I just mentioned, implies that there has been a shift from traditional training and development to career development and organisational development. If we go back maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was a lot of emphasis on training in colleges and universities, and the people came out of those institutions ready for work. And that idea is still around, and it still applies. It's still a valid expectation. However, because work has become so specialized, and because of the advent of new technology and technology which is specific to particular functions, it's unreasonable to expect colleges and universities and training institutes to turn out graduates or diplomats or whatever with precisely the skills that's required by industry. So there is a need for on-the-job training. There is a need for in-house training, so that the workers can take their, if you like, more generic skills and top them up with the specific skills required to perform the specific tasks of modern industry. Now, the study, the one we were talking about here, introduced the human resource wheel. It's just a way of looking at all of the issues, and we'll come to it in a few moments. So the wheel has various components. It has training and development. It has organizational development. So training and development is much more over time. Development is a long-term plan that individuals undertake to develop themselves over perhaps a number of years, or perhaps over their lifetime, lifelong learning. Whereas training tends to be more specific, a particular skill. They're trained to do a particular task, to do a particular job. That's training. Training tends to be much more short-term, development over a long period. We've also got, in the resource wheel, organizational development. Organizations do develop. Organizations change because of all sorts of pressures, competitive pressure, the onset of new technology, the incorporating employment law, changes in employment law, looking at different market situations and so on. So organizations are constantly developing and evolving and have new requirements. They're not static entities that remain the same for very long periods of time. And within all of this, the individuals have career developments. Individuals are individuals. Individuals have aspirations. They want to be promoted. They want to be recognized. They want to be rewarded. They put in a lot of effort. They're making every effort to meet the requirements of the job or of the task. They're applying themselves diligently, and therefore they feel that it should be rewarded. So career development is another part of the wheel. Now let's look at the idea of the wheel. As I said, it was developed by McLagan in 1989. It shows primary HRM and H&D functions. Now these are the primary means in this case, the really important ones. So if we go through these, we'd say, well, the primary function, HRM function, is obtaining, maintaining and developing employees. So primary HRM, human resource development, human resource management function is to recruit people to the organization, and employee retention, making sure that the people who are in feel that they can continue and there's less need to recruit other workers. So they are developing the employees. Now, whereas the primary human resource development function on the right hand side is improving individuals, improving groups and improving organizational effectiveness. It's looking at ways in which the organization can be developed, looking at ways in which work can be completed more efficiently, working at ways in which skills can be updated and maintained and new skills acquired, looking at training programs, looking at developing the individuals, looking at organizing teams that work effectively together, generally growing the organization. Now if we put these into a wheel, that's roughly what a wheel looks like. So we put in the human resource results. Well, what we're interested in terms of the human resource requirement for the businesses, we want a workforce that's productive, that produces quality work. We want a workforce that's innovative. And they are able to fulfill the expectations that we've got for them, and they're ready for change. They're able to cope with change when change is forced on an organization because of competitive pressure or changes in the product or changes in customer taste. The workforce are able to adjust to this. So human resources also have these in mind. They have an emphasis on how to make the workforce more productive, how to increase the quality, and how to enable innovation to take place, as well as fulfilling their basic functions of recruiting people to do the work and recruiting employees and maintaining and retaining the workforce. So we've got these various human resource requirements. Now if we talk about the primary human resource development functions, we'd have training and development, because that's going to enable the workforce to perform more effectively. Training, as I said earlier, tends to be for specific tasks. Development is a long-term development program for individuals. And as I said as well earlier, it may be lifelong. It may be the lifelong learning for the individuals. There's also organisational development, where the organisation sees the importance of training, sees the importance of the workforce, sees the importance of being flexible within the market, sees the importance of innovation, and so on and so on. And it grows itself. It develops and grows itself and develops itself. So it's not a static organisation. It is an evolving organisation, one coping with changes in society, changes in the market. And also there are issues about career development. The HRD function is linked to career development. Workers who are keen to be developed, to acquire the skills and apply the skills, and who are keen to be involved in the training or mentoring of other members of staff or other employees. There is a career development aspect to that. they are promoting themselves. The jobs themselves have to be designed. The tasks have to be designed. It's important that the functions that are required are clearly delineated, and that the skills that are necessary to perform those functions are recognized and listed, so that there is a focus on delivering those particular skills to perform those particular functions which fit within the overall organization's requirements. So there is a need to have organizational job design. There should be clear functions, and the functions have certain requirements, and it's the function then of the Human Resource Development section to ensure that the skills are there to perform those functions. Now, the primary HRM functions, well, starting at the top, the HR have an obligation to research and also to have some sort of information system. They research the market, they research the different qualifications that individuals hold within the marketplace. They look at the information sources available on the labour market. They know about the legislation and the requirements of legislation in terms of employment. So it's a research and it's an information system. So the HR department is an information system. But it should also have an active role in things like dealing with labour relations. When there is a grievance, when people feel that they are not being treated fairly, the HR department should look carefully into the nature of the grievance, look into what caused it, and see what is fair. Try to get a reasonable outcome, one that accommodates the requirement of the employee, and one that's also fair to the institution, fair to the company, that there is a balance to be struck, and all the sides to the issue can feel that they've been served well by the intervention of the HRM, by the intervention of the Human Resource Management section. The Human Resource Management section should also help employees. They should be a source of advice, and they should be prepared to listen and learn from the employees as well. The employees are the ones who are doing the job on a day-to-day basis in terms of production or delivery of a product or whatever, and the Human Resource Management section can get good feedback from the employees. So having meetings with the employees, perhaps through a works council or through some sort of consultative arrangement, is good for the HRM department. They are kept up to date with exactly the issues and what's happening and the concerns of the employees. And remedial measures can be put in place very quickly if an issue is seen as on the horizon. It should also be involved with compensation and benefits, being able to look at the compensation that's paid in the case of accidents, or if workers are required to work on sociable hours, what sort of compensation, what sort of payment can go to those people. Because they've put themselves out for the company should recompense them and make sure that it's fair. In other words, that there is a perception of fairness right around the organization. The HRM department also can look at the performance management systems, how well different departments are working, and what issues arise in different departments. It could be some departments are under stress, perhaps the departmental manager is under stress. It can be caused by family issues, work issues, health issues. It can be caused by many ways, and this will impact on the performance of the business, and perhaps HRM need to be aware of this and need to be ready to intervene to help to redress any situation and make constructive suggestions and get involved. Clearly, it's the function of the HRM department to be involved in selection and staffing. They talk to management to find out what the job description is, what vacancies are required to be filled, and what the job descriptions are for those vacancies. They then undertake to recruit appropriate people. They organise interviews and advertisements in the press, and perhaps organise some sort of selection process, perhaps an assessment centre or whatever. So the HRM function is caught up very, very closely with the idea of selection and staffing. And of course also looking at human resource planning. It's not just a question of looking at what is right now, but looking at the way the organisation is developing and the corporate plans and the strategies of the organisation, and looking at what the senior management are planning for the organisation, perhaps in the medium term, say in the next 2 to 3 years, or in the long term, say above 5 years, so that the human resource section can start to plan effectively how it's going to man the extra requirements and recruit people of the appropriate skill level. So the wheel, the human resource wheel, gives us an indication of the types of functions that are performed by the human resource development on the right hand side and the human resource management on the other side. They may be seen as two separate functions, but because of the nature of what they do, it's generally recognized that the human resource development is a section within the wider human resource management department. Now let's move to talk about training and development. The purpose of training and development is to improve, or even to further develop, the knowledge, skills and attitudes of employees so that they can fulfill their long-term responsibilities efficiently. So the whole purpose of training and development is to develop the individuals, develop the workers in a way that enables them to work more effectively, to work within themselves much more efficiently. They're more competent, they're more skillful, they're more applied and perhaps more relaxed about the job, they're more confident about the job, and they can more easily empathize with the direction the company is taking and the objectives of the company. It should start when new employees join the organization. The training process should start at the beginning so that the workers who come in, the new employees who arrive in, feel that they are being integrated right from the outset. They're being integrated right from the start and they feel a part of the organization. This is usually referred to as employee orientation and skills training. It's important that the employees coming in understand the culture of the business, the way the work is conducted, the way communications work within the business, the role of technology, the nature of the product, the types of customer they've got, the issues that they're likely to encounter, the problems they're likely to encounter. So they feel that it's all been well thought out and the company is professional about the way it goes about organising itself and dealing with its workforce. Activities typically involve employee training. For example, as I said earlier, looking at the norms and values of the business, looking at the culture of the business, and also to establish relationships. Relationships, new workers, new employees arriving in, maybe a number of them, they will all feel something in common. So they will start to form relationships, to start to talk to each other and share experiences and get to know each other. It's the start of something new for them. And also they will get to know the company and the company will get to know them. So relationships are started at a period, and that means that the workers may empathize, may relate to the business more effectively and be more motivated and keen to be involved with the business. And also, of course, and finally, they are inducted into their particular job role. They will be given some instruction about the type of work they'll be doing and why that work is important, emphasized the positive. Why it's important? Because all the jobs within a business are important. They all contribute towards the final product and towards a salary at the end of the month for each of the workers. So explaining the job role is important so that the workers can relate to it. Now, organisational development. This process is concerned with developing the organisation's effectiveness as well as the well-being of its members. So organisational development, this is the organisational development, that's developing the effectiveness of the organisation. It incorporates looking after the workforce, but it also looks after the organisation, tries to make the organisation more efficient, tries to look after the processes that the workforce will encounter to ensure there is a tight fit or a good fit between the skills and competencies of the workforce and those of the organisation, so the organisation will develop. It is then the function of the marketing section to ensure that the product meets the customer requirements and the product is innovated, and the different departments will come into play. But the different departments are composed of people, and the people need to be developed, and there is a role for organisational development. The people are developed, and it's through the development of the people that the organisation develops and grows. Now, there is planned intervention within the organisation. Looking at the organisation's effectiveness means being involved with the organisation, knowing what's happening, knowing what the processes are and where the processes are deficient or where the processes are efficient. So there usually is planned interventions. Macro changes, for example, embedded to improve the effectiveness of the organisation. Macro change in this case means a change for the whole organisation. It applies right throughout the organisation. This could be a change in working hours, or it could be a change in working practices that applies to everyone. Sometimes the macro changes come about as a consequence of changes in government legislation. But it may not involve an outside agency like the government. It may be a macro change that's simply applied to the whole organisation to try and increase efficiency, to try and increase effectiveness, and to develop the organisation. So it's depending on the nature of the organisation, depending on the nature of the product, it's some rule that applies to everyone. It's a macro change. Obviously there are micro changes which are focused on individuals and small group teams. The micro changes could be on individuals and how they function, perform, or where they fit in the organisation. Because as organisations develop, their functions will change. As technology develops, functions will change. So individuals must be ready to adopt change and to move with the requirements of the market, what the customers want as a final product, and also the requirements of the technology, because machinery and technical processes are not static. So individuals will need to change as well. For example, the introduction of employee involvement techniques. It may be that the company simply seeks feedback from the employees. It could be a type of quality circle where the employees are invited once a month or whatever, once a week, depends, generally speaking once a month. They're invited, some employees who are very enthusiastic are invited along to a meeting to give their opinions openly, freely, not structured, just a chat about what's happening in the business, how the work is going, what issues they perceive and what solutions they recommend. So there is involvement. The workers feel that they're being heard, and there is a forum for them to feed back into the organisation, and the organisation will develop as a consequence of this. It'll be more flexible towards its workforce, it'll produce a better product, the workers will be more motivated, there's a greater opportunity for innovation. It's seen as a good way forward. Now, career development. Well, this is a relationship between career development and training and development. For a start, career development is a continuous process, and it has two stages. Career planning, establishing a career path through the guidance of a counsellor. Now, career planning is extremely important because it's important for the individual to work out what his or her skill set is at the moment and what skill set is required to get the position that they want. Their aspirations may be more than what they've got at the moment. They have ambitions, and these ambitions will only be fulfilled if they acquire extra skills, extra competencies, perhaps extra qualifications. So it's important that they have the input of experts and have advice regarding the direction and what is the most appropriate direction for them to develop so as to meet their aspirations. So they will have a career plan. And career management, how the organisation can help the employee career development. So the organisation will take the individual's aspirations, if the individual should make those known to the organisation, will take those aspirations and should try to facilitate those if at all possible, because clearly that person is interested in the organisation, trusts the organisation because it has confided his or her career ambitions, and the organisation should try to facilitate that and give the individual an opportunity to develop, attend courses, acquire specific skills, and also perhaps acquire some more generic skills, wider skills that will help him or her develop his or her managerial qualities. So there is career development, and that's an important issue. The aim of this stage is based on achieving the career plan. And generally speaking, people have career plans. It's what they want to do. It's when individuals are motivated about themselves to get better work, better conditions of employment, a better salary, a better way of life. And when they have got that aspiration, then it should link, ideally, to the aspirations of the business in terms of its own development. Because the business development and the individual career developments ideally should be in the same direction. And it should be promoting each other. The supervisor's role within human resource development. Well, supervisors are vital in the development of HRD programs and training initiatives. They provide, for example, orientation and training and coaching and career development. So supervisors are essential. These are individuals who watch the task being performed, make suggestions, make corrections to procedures, train the individual to perform the tasks. They ensure that the individual understands the task, they understand the different issues associated with the task. They become the supervisor, the person who knows the job. They have an expertise. So for example, let's say it was a new piece of software in the office. One person maybe become quite expert on this, and the organization may have sent that person on a training program before the software was installed on the office network. So that person has been trained to be, if you like, an expert in that software. Now when the software is installed on the network and everyone is expected to use it, that person is the obvious candidate to ask questions. If something is not understood, or if some aspect of the program can't be used for whatever reason, that person is the person who will deal with the issue. And of course, in dealing with the issue, everyone in the office will benefit from seeing what the solution was, and they will learn. So perhaps the next time round that situation will not arise, or if it does arise, they can fix it themselves. The size of the department has an influence on human resource development and its functions. For example, HRD within a small organization will be dependent upon supervisors and managers. In large organizations, the human resource development may be headed up by experts, by training experts, by people who have perhaps a sound academic background, but also have achieved high levels of competencies in training and program delivery. So they are likely to be the ones in charge in large organizations. In small companies, it's normally the managers and the foremen and people who have precise skills. But really, because they are the managers and the foremen and the people doing the job, generally speaking, they don't have a lot of time, so it's much more hit and miss as to the quality and the quantity of the training. Now, the conclusion. Well, HRD can be a function of HRM or a standalone department. That's what I said right at the outset. The main function of the human resource development is to improve the skills of the employees so as to meet the organizational needs through sufficient training and development initiatives. So HRD is there to meet organizational needs by developing the human resource, developing people, making sure that the people have got the appropriate skills and competencies to do the job effectively and to be efficient. Human resource development is an important function within all organisations. It's important to understand the human resource needs of the organisation and develop employees to meet those needs. It's important that companies recognise employees or workers as an important resource and invest in the resource. Invest in the development of the resource to ensure greater efficiency overall. There is no point in just having efficient machinery or efficient capital if the workforce are inefficient. So ensure that the workforce are efficient also by having appropriate training programs and updating programs, which will not only improve efficiency within the organisation, as I've said earlier, but it will also motivate the individuals and create a better spirit within the workforce. That's really all we need to say about the human resource development and the functions of the human resource development section. That's McLagan's article that we mentioned earlier, and that's all I'm going to do on this session, so thank you for watching.